So much media, so little time. Who keeps track of it all? That would be me. This is Bob Andelman, and this is the Mr. Media Interview, recorded live on blogtalkradio.com from the new Media and American League Baseball capital of the world, St. Petersburg, Florida. We've reached a point in popular culture where there are so many generational touchstones that it's no longer safe to assume that if I tell you that I love The French Connection, that you can safely assume that I will also know about other movies in that era or genre, such as Serpico, Super Cops, or The Taking of Pelham 123. Amazon.com and Netflix reached that conclusion. That's why if you buy or rent a movie, book, a DVD, or MP3 from them, their computer concierge will automatically recommend something similar you might also enjoy. And now, Stuart Skorman, founder of Empire Video and Reel.com, a precursor to Netflix, thinks we need a return to the human touch for movie recommendations. That's why he's launched ClerkDogs.com. Stuart, welcome to Mr. Media.
Thank you. And all that was very well said. I'm a 60-year-old that's bucking a new tradition, and I think you framed this whole conversation very well. Thank you very much.
Sure, that'll be $10, please.
And by the way, if I was just somebody that was saying, "Here's a good idea," I'm not sure you would have me on the show. But it turns out I helped to invent collaborative filtering 13 years ago when I was founding Reel.com. And at the time I thought that the computers would be able to do this, and was very excited by that possibility. And over the last 13 years, I've realized that we still need a human touch, and that's why I founded this new company.
Well, let's talk about collaborative filtering. I mean, that makes sense to you and me, but I imagine there's people who will hear this either live or later on archive who will not know what you're talking about. Well, where did it start, and where is it now, and where do you fit in?
Cool. Well, the collaborative filtering was so exciting to me because I owned a chain of video stores for 9 years before I founded Reel.com, so I was physically talking to the customers about movies. And it was very hard to do that because we had 10,000 titles in our stores. Our stores were relatively very large. And someone would come home from work at 5 o'clock at night, and they'd be tired, and they don't want to talk about 10,000 movies. They want to find one movie that they're going to love and go home and watch it. Almost like finding a needle in the haystack. And so we developed some systems, which I'll tell you about in a few minutes, that we're able to put online that allowed us in a physical world, with a physical video store, to very easily make the customer happy. And I'll tell you what those two things were. The main thing that you ask a customer, if you don't know the customer and they say they want a good movie tonight, the main thing that you ask them is, well, just name a movie in the past that you've seen that's in the direction of something that you're in the mood for tonight. Mm-hmm. And once the customer answers that question, they always do. They'll always say something like, "Oh, the wife and I just saw Little Miss Sunshine, and you got anything funny like that?" They always know more, and so that question will bring that out. And as soon as that customer says Little Miss Sunshine, we know more about that customer than a computer could ever know, because we actually know what their exact mood is at the moment. Mm-hmm. And that's very hard to do in a computer. So getting back to your question. A solution to that problem on the computer is what they call pattern recognition, or you could call it collaborative filtering, or you could call it artificial intelligence. All three terms fit these computerized systems that you see on a place like Netflix that will take the past movies that you've rated. They ask you questions. Do you like this movie? Yes or no. And then also they'll take the movies that you've watched, and they'll take that information, and then from that information, they will make suggestions. And what we're doing is we're just taking a system a little bit like that, many steps farther, by allowing the customer to come back and have a conversation, just like they used to have with a video store clerk. So the conversation might go, "Gee, the wife and I have seen something like Little Miss Sunshine. That's exactly what we're in the mood for tonight." Mm-hmm. And then the conversation would go something like, "Oh, you like Little Miss Sunshine? Well, you either liked it because it was offbeat or because it was mainstream." By the way, that movie went both ways. Both art house crowds liked it and mainstream crowds liked it. So the conversation in the video store would go something like, "Oh, if you liked it because of its slickness and its mainstream kind of humor, have you seen City Slickers yet?" And then you could start to have a conversation just built around this whole this movie, this experience that they had.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a conversation when you're with a clerk. It's back and forth. Oh, City Slickers is too mainstream for you and it's too fast-paced. What about Harold and Maude? Harold and Maude is slow-paced and it's much more offbeat than Little Miss Sunshine Show. You might like that one even more. But the point is, this is what humans are used to be doing when they shop for movies, is they're very passionate. They want to be involved. They want it to be a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And so what we represent at Clerk Dogs is we've created a whole grid where we've actually done the work for the customer. We've said that the City Slickers is more mainstream than Little Miss Sunshine, and we've said that that Harold and Maude is more offbeat and a slower paced. Now, and not everybody's going to agree with all these things that we're saying, but since we're getting the information from people who used to be clerks in video stores who really know their customers, most customers agree with most of our opinions. And so so what we've done differently is we've created something that the customer can participate in and drive like a car, versus having a computer come down from its mountain and say, here's our recommendation, but we don't even know why.
So it's a different type of collaborative filtering, isn't it? I mean, you don't have a live person on the other end of the computer who's responding to me at the time that I'm at clerkdogs.com, or do you?
Well, the collaborative, we do collaborative filtering, but it's from the clerks who worked in the video stores. They've already done the filtering. In other words, they've talked to a lot of customers. They spent years working in video stores. So we do collaborative filtering, but we get the information from the clerks because we have the whys. We have, somebody likes Little Miss Sunshine because it's fast-paced, because it's got very black humor, or maybe another person liked it not because of the black humor, but because of the more slapstick humor. And so these movies are are complex. It's not a simple choice. And so what we do is we actually have 35 attributes that drive our whole system. Now, at Netflix, the computer never asks why, so they have 0 attributes. In other words, we're a level lower than they are. We're using more information. And because we're using more information, it allows a customer to participate like a clerk, like to have a conversation.
Now, the most famous movie store clerk on Earth has got to be Quentin Tarantino. Am I getting my own personal Quentin Tarantino when I come to Clerk Dogs?
Yes and no. The 26 writers that we have are of that level. Most of them have worked in video stores for years. They're the ones that really knew the customers. And, Quentin Tarantino all the time says that the reason that he makes great movies is that he spent years working in video stores, so he really understands the customers and he understands why they like movies. So that's exactly what we're doing. The collaborative filtering systems, by the way, it would take too much time for a customer to give that information, so we're getting the information from the best source. We're getting it from the clerks. So the principles way down deep are the same, except we're making a conversation because we take it a level lower. We know why the customers like the movies. We have the 35 attributes.
And now, Stuart,
go ahead.
Do all Clerk Dogs want to direct?
No, we're all it's a mishmash of different people. I have the 6 original people, the 6 original writers that I work with to found Real.com, 13 years ago. As you say, the precursor to Netflix. So they're all working here for 2.5 years, helping me invent and create this whole system. The former managing editor of the Real Content Department, Mary Kaylin Casey, is our managing editor here. So there's a huge amount of DNA involved in what we're doing. In other words, think of it as a long-term movie genome project.
Now,
go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, just to clarify, there's no direct connection between Real.com that you founded and Netflix, is that
No,
correct?
except this is just the same group of people taking another step forward. Is the only connection between Real.com or Netflix or Hollywood Video or anything you want to talk about is this is just the original team from Real.com that's been reunited to create a whole new way to for people to shop for movies, just like we did with Real.com in 1995.
Okay. And the thing that I'm curious about is if I go to Netflix, I mean, they see that I ordered Animal House and therefore maybe they point me to Caddyshack or American Pie. For most people, isn't that close enough? I mean, why would I go? Why would I, take a detour and go to Clerk Dogs, or why do I need a different service if I'm only going to order from Netflix anyway?
Got you. And that's, by the way, thank you for all those skepticism, and those are all good questions. On Netflix, we'll make recommendations of other movies. We don't think their recommendations are very good.
Oh,
we think that over half their customers are unhappy with their system, by the way, I've talked to a lot of people at Netflix, including Reed Hastings, and they have this Netflix challenge. You've heard about it, where they're offering $1 million prize for techies to improve their system.
Mm-hmm.
And Netflix, by the way, is an incredible company. Reed Hastings is a genius. He's making tons of great moves in terms of business development. Getting inside all these boxes and making alliances with all these companies. He's got a great system with 60 warehouses that give people really fast, direct service. He's a technology genius. The Netflix, what they've created is unbelievable. And since I come from Real.com, the precursor of this, I think I know a lot about what he's accomplished, and what he's done is amazing. But we believe there's one piece missing, and it's an important piece. He knows the vast majority of his customers, by the way, are very unhappy with his discovery system, and that's why he had that challenge, and he admits that. And so who we are, there are times where it's a combination of man and machine that can be better than either man or machine. Think of it almost like a bionic person could have a strong arm that's made of metal that could hit somebody, but they still have a human brain. It's a combination. And so whether we have lots of algorithms here, we have lots of techies, but we're bringing back the human element as well. We're mixing them together a little bit like, say, Pandora or Wikipedia. A lot of these new sites are beginning to say, wait a minute, the computer can't do it by itself. Mm-hmm. There needs to be human passion. There needs to be a human intelligence. Even human intuition. To get these 35 attributes from the customers, I'm not sure you could get the information directly from them. Netflix already says half their customers don't even rate movies at all, and then if they had to rate the movie and give all the attributes, it would take like 10 times as long just to rate one movie. And so we're not doing anything that, and if you really look at what we're doing in the technology world, we're doing 2 + 2 = 4. We're not doing anything different. We're just getting our information from a different source because we're getting very deep information, and it's hard to get it directly from the customers.
Now, actually, before I ask you that question, I want to just give out our phone number. If you've got a comment or a question for Stuart Skorman, the founder of ClerkDogs.com and also the author of the book Confessions of a Serial Entrepreneur, give us a call at 1-646-595-3135. If you happen to call and we're not live, don't bother to call in. We're probably both off watching a movie somewhere. So, how does ClerkDogs make money? Are you strictly recommending movies and then sending people elsewhere, or are you selling movies? Are you renting movies? What's the business plan?
Basically, 6 months ago, we were thinking of more of what they call a B2C model, which meant that we were going to be directly selling advertising and getting maybe revenue sharing, and then just building a big brand in terms of we're the place to go to get good movies if you want to discover something new. What we specialize in is the word discovery. And so we could get right into the Netflix queue and be a separate company. And, of course, the people will order from Netflix, but they use us for the information. In fact, we basically have that feature rolling out on our site later this week, for instance, where you can actually use our site and be a Netflix customer and just use us for information.
And do you make some money on that?
Well, basically, because of the big economic crash that we're all in the middle of, I'm a 60-year-old spending my retirement money. It's a true story. And because of all those reasons, we've actually been changing our plans, and we are negotiating with several large companies and doing something a little bit more exclusive, where there's only a very few places that ClerkDogs live, and those very few places we're going to get paid for being there. Does that make sense? So what we're doing is going from a B2C play where we were going to become a big brand, and then as this whole video on demand thing starts to take off in the future, and as more people have thousands of choices and they need to navigate through those choices, well that's when our discovery engine becomes very valuable. And that's the point where we can make a lot of money a few years down the road, and we had hoped to keep a consumer brand before that. But since we are now very much in an economic crisis, we're actually negotiating with large companies and to have more exclusive relationships with those large companies. So for instance, we might have a relationship with maybe one cable provider in the United States, but we wouldn't have a relationship with all of them that are competing with each other. And that could be true in Europe. It could be true in different channels, too, as well. There's various channels where people have movies delivered. And so at this point, ClerkDogs is negotiating with strategic partners, and that's probably the direction we're going to go, which is more what they call B2B play, where we're going to still be powering other companies, but not necessarily building our own brand long term.
Okay. Well, just Stuart, are you in front of a computer?
Actually, I'm not right now. Sorry about that.
Okay. All right. Well, then you help me. I'll type. You.
Oh, cool. I designed the website, so go for it.
All right. So, folks, I'm at the Clerk Dog. It's clerkdogs.com. I'm going to enter one of my favorite movies of all time into the. It says at the top, start with a movie you love. I've entered Animal House.
Okay. Stick to crime, suspense, sci-fi, and horror. Those are the 4 genres we build out so far, and why we're not blasting away being on anybody's site right now. This is a handmade database. It's going to take about 3 months from today to complete it. Oh. And so for now, we're asking people to stick in the sci-fi, crime, suspense, and horror genres. It's a lot of movies, by the way. So it ends up being about half of the database. But stick in those areas. Comedy's going to be our last one to do, and so that would be a weak point for us right now.
All right. How about sci-fi? How about a movie called Galaxy Quest?
Anything in sci-fi. That sounds great.
All right. Galaxy Quest. That was.
I'm not familiar with it, but as I say, anything in sci-fi is going to work.
Well, okay. I got 0 partial search results. Our clerks have not treated the movie you were looking for. Please consider giving us feedback. Man.
Whoa,
all right. Now, wait a minute.
Sorry about
that. Now,
that.
having done that, now I'm going to be fair here, and I'm going to go to Netflix, and I'm going to enter the same movie and see what comes up. Maybe I have the title wrong, and I'm willing to...
But by the way, I'm a bad speller. Whatever you're talking about should be in our database. We had a big problem with Pelham 123, which is a good suspense movie. Well, it turns out the title was Taking of Pelham 123. It took us a while to figure it out.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. All right. So, like I said, in fairness, I'm going to see, and maybe I'm going to find that I have the wrong title, but I've seen it many times, so I'm pretty sure that's right. All right. So I'm at Netflix, and I've entered Galaxy Quest, and okay, it's 2 words. Aha! So it's Galaxy Quest, and that brings up Galaxy Quest, Galaxina, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, Galaxy 500.
That's right. Pick one of those and go back to our site. Sorry about that. We should have that. We should have that on our site too.
Let me go back and enter the title, maybe spelled differently. I bet it will come up now. Okay, it's 2 words. All right, so good. It does. It brings up completely different choices. So here's what I get.
It's not only giving you choices, it's giving you 2-word descriptions of why they're similar, why they're different. And I'm not sure if we've done enough on that movie or not to go beyond the 2 words, but it means a lot, those 2 words, when we're saying more offbeat or less offbeat or whatever. In other words, you're not just seeing recommendations, you're seeing a context.
Right, and I see that here. It says... I said that my favorite movie, or a favorite movie of mine was Galaxy Quest. The Clerk sleeper pick, a creative match for Galaxy Quest, is The Last Starfighter, which was, I agree. You know what? I think that's an excellent choice. I was actually trying to think of the title of that movie when I picked Galaxy Quest.
Okay, and then the sleeper is where we add value, because if we were to tell you, gee, watch Star Wars or some obvious movie, then we didn't add very much value, because guess what? You've seen that movie or you're going to find out about it. And so one of the values that we have is we have clerks, and clerks know what a sleeper is. A sleeper is a movie that some people don't know about that they're probably going to like. Mm-hmm. And whereas recommending an obvious movie doesn't do much good, recommending a less obvious movie is a value add, and so that's why we have what's called a clerk sleeper pick. It's always obvious, by the way. Everywhere on our site, you'll always see one big thing called a clerk sleeper pick, so that we have an easy choice for a customer, but it's not just an easy choice, it's also what we call a value add.
It's an interesting description. It actually says, similar plot to Galaxy Quest, in which a boy saves the galaxy based on his top score on a video game, and then it adds no satire. I think that's interesting.
Right. Okay, yeah. and then everything that you just read is why we're different than Netflix and everybody else out there. You just got it. You just read all those words. That's a story. Mm-hmm. And if you love that original movie that you obviously do, then it's a story that you want to hear about, and it isn't just in the English language, it's in the language of the movie that you're talking about. Mm-hmm. So that thing that you read, it said more than this and less than that. It wasn't a general description. It was only relating itself to Galaxy Quest, which is that movie that you're interested in. And so it's very unusual and very powerful, because if you like that movie, you want to read about all those other movies.
Well, and here's some of the other movies that it also brings up. If maybe I'm not interested in Last Starfighter, I've already seen it. For Men in Black, it says Sleeker. This movie
but that's a mistake. It shouldn't say Sleeper.
Okay. Well, there's a movie called Evolution that I don't know. It says raunchier humor. Star Trek, the original series from 1966, more serious. Trekkies, 1997, a humorous documentary. The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, similar irreverence. Ghostbusters, similar genre blend. Tropic Thunder, more violent. That's a little off the wall there. I don't know if I'd make that connection. Serenity.
By the way, if you read more if you're not sure, because you're just reading the top 2 words, which also nobody else has that, by the way, those 2 words, contextual reviews. But go deeper. If you disagree with us, go deeper, and maybe we'll explain it better.
Okay, well, what it actually says is, for Tropic Thunder, more violent showbiz satire features similarly screwball humor minus all sci-fi trappings. So, that's,
So that helped a little bit, but you still disagree with us. Gotcha.
Well, it's just, I'm looking at, everything else is a sci-fi movie, and then there's Tropic Thunder, which is a comedy about making movies and war.
But go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I actually think it's, generally, with that exception, I think it's a good variety and good selection. I particularly like the Last Starfighter. I thought that was an unusual match.
Cool.
Now, what is the difference? I have options here to match or mash. Now, what's the difference?
So press mash. Right now, you're seeing the handmade matches done by our clerks. Is what you've seen so far. So if you press mash, you'll see the other major feature of our site where we're giving you sliders and you can drive it like a car.
Okay, let's do that.
So press mash.
Okay, and the sliders, it's movie DNA slide to fit.
That's right. So what you're seeing right now is movies that match the attributes of the movie that you in question. So those are set at the attribute levels of how our clerks have rated that movie.
Okay.
And it's all on a 1 to 10 scale. Humans are still doing this, by the way, and our human clerks are still putting those 1 to 10 ratings in there that you're just about to drive like a car.
All right. And
so all you have to do with the mash with those sliders on the left is move them, and then everything will change to fit what you want.
All right. And it starts with it says 2 movies have similar characteristics to Galaxy Quest, and it lists Ghostbusters 2 first, and then Ghostbusters. So
if you start to move the levers, everything will change. In other words, you've already seen a lot of the movies that we think match the attributes. That was the first thing, the matches. Now you're kind of going outside of that.
All right. Now I've reduced the geek factor, and I come up with Inner Space, which was a interesting movie with Dennis Quaid and Martin Short. That's a good one. Let's see if I want to. Actually, in my case, I probably want to increase the crude humor. So let's see what that brings up.
Go for it.
But it's humor, I guess. So you kind of warned us.
We're weak on the humor. Put it up there anyway, but we're weak on the comedies.
Yeah, it didn't bring anything up.
That's right. But by the way, that would be true just because we haven't rated the comedies yet.
Okay.
But move the others around and you'll get lots of action.
All right. If I reduce the amount of action, I come up with a movie called Rocket Man with Harlan Williams, which I see it as a Clerk's pick. I haven't seen it, so I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. I don't think that may not be the best example. Let me ask you this. Oh, and so that's Mash It. So Mash, the movie, is basically moving around the characteristics that I like about a given movie, and then by changing how high or low I feel about geek factor, action, screwball humor, I might come up with another recommendation. Right.
We start with we have 35 attributes that live on our site, so we start with the top 5 for the movie that you started with. So that's why we defaulted to the 5 attributes that you saw at the settings that they were at. Mm-hmm. Another thing that you can do if you go to the bottom left-hand corner of the box where the Mash It sliders are, is you can clear the sliders and start from scratch and build your own movie.
Ah.
So in other words, you can just clear them, and then each slider, you can do up to 5. There's 5 slots up there, and each one will have a pull-down menu of the 35 attributes that we have on our site. So you could pick whatever attributes you wanted, and then you could set them at whatever level you wanted to set them, and whenever you make any move at all, there'll always be results in a Clerk's pick on the right.
Okay.
and then you can literally build your own. And then you can literally build your own movie starting
There's
from scratch.
And then you click on the plus sign, and it brings up.
That's it.
Yeah. All right.
That's right. So you literally can just say, gee, I want a movie tonight with a lot of action, and set the action at 9 and say that's the highest attribute or the most important attribute. So that's number 1. And then you could say the second most important attribute is I want character depth because I don't want just action. I want characters I can believe. And so you set that one high. And then you come up with a movie like The Departed, which has a lot of action but also a lot of character depth, whatever. And so the point is you can actually build your own movie on the system because the database is so rich. It's a huge database. And so you can literally just start from scratch and just say what do you want, and whatever you want something, it'll appear, or whatever combination.
I see just by clicking 3 plus signs, I came up with action, bad taste, and black humor. And full-on action, full-on bad taste, full-on black humor. The site recommends, hey, not surprisingly, Grindhouse.
By the way, that's in our database because it's suspense, not just humor. And so you'll get some of the real action movies that have some humor because we've treated the action yet. But if it's too much humor, you won't get them.
Right, and of course, Grindhouse is the double feature with films by Quentin Tarantino and Robert Rodriguez. It was really a Clerk Dogs type of favorite, even if you didn't know what a Clerk Dog was. It's that kind of movie. It's it's a Grindhouse movie. You'd go and you'd sit for hours and watch just glorified crap, and you'd come out going, yeah, that was a lot of fun. It won't win an Academy Award, but that was fun. Now, speaking of the Academy Awards, how's that for a segue? Speaking of the Academy Awards, they are coming up this Sunday, February 22nd. I wondered if we could put Clerk Dogs to the test for the films nominated for Best Picture.
Yes, we've actually done some work on that, even though all those genres we haven't completed. But we have totally treated all the important Academy Award nominee movies. In fact, that was released a couple days after the nominees were announced, and then we announced what we call our Clerks Picks. And the online publication called TechCrunch actually ran a really big story that day, and they compared us with Netflix. And since Netflix doesn't do very good in this matching, this what I call discovery piece of what's going on, when they compared our matches with the Netflix matches, ours looked a lot better. And the reason they looked a lot better is because our clerks really worked at it, and they just took the information out of a machine.
Well, I was going to say, fortunately for Clerk Dogs, the Academy is not very interested in comedy, so we don't have to really worry.
This year, it didn't go this year in that way, right?
No, they don't. They tend not to go with comedy or blockbusters or superhero films. So we're probably in good shape.
By the way, let me announce that our entire database with all the genres will be done in about 3 more months. It's been working on it for 2 years. It's a handmade database, and so we'll spend like an hour with each movie, and so it's a lot of work for us to kind of get to the point where all this fits together. But I want to say very clearly that we have 26 writers now. We're treating about 500 movies a week, so we're very scaled. We're scaled at a much higher number than we've ever been, and that the database will be functionally complete in the month of June. So it's coming up pretty fast. But just like sometimes you get a hamburger from a place where it takes an extra minute because it tastes much better because it's more handmade. And that's what we're doing with our database. Is it takes a little time to complete it. But it's got a quality that a lot of the people think is really worth that time and that trouble.
Well, I entered The Curious Case of Benjamin Button. It's the Brad Pitt, Kate Blanchett movie. It's up for Best Picture, 2009. And here are some of the movies that it recommends. The Clerk sleeper pick in this category is something called A Very Long Engagement. I've never even heard of it, and I haven't seen Benjamin Button, so I will accept that. But it also recommends Forrest Gump, The Notebook, Driving Miss Daisy, Big Fish, Somewhere in Time. That was a Christopher Reeve movie. That was real good. Wings of Desire, The Oldest Living Confederate Widow Tells All, Tuck Everlasting, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? I mean, it's a variety of which would imply. Go ahead.
And then we're also giving the descriptions or the context so that the customer is taking it the last mile. In other words, we're keeping the customer in the conversation with those 2-word or those 10-word little summaries that relate all these movies to the original movie. You see what I mean? So what we're doing is doing what they used to do in video stores in terms of a customer dealing with a human, where there's a conversation going on, where we're allowing the customer, we're telling the customer why we're recommending it, so they can say, oh no, I don't like that, or I do like that, or in other words, you never know exactly what's in a customer's mind. The computer can, I don't care how smart a computer gets, it can never know what's currently in a customer's mind. And so what we're doing is we're allowing the customer to stay involved in the process.
Well, here's what the Clerk Dogs engine recommends if you liked Frost Nixon and you want something like that. This is why it's always interesting, and this was kind of my point in the introduction. Is there's so many movies out there now that you just can't know them all, like maybe you did 30 years ago. The Clerk sleeper pick, if you like Frost Nixon, is Secret Honor, a Robert Altman film from 1984. Who knew? I can't say I've ever heard of this, and I thought I knew most of Altman's work. So, I mean, that's a very interesting choice.
Thank you for that compliment.
Yeah. It also recommends The Queen, and that's because the same person wrote Frost Nixon has wrote The Queen. I know that.
Actually, that's not why we recommended it.
No, but
a human thought the movies were similar. It wasn't a machine saying that the writers or the directors were the same. I just want to point that out, is that it's coming from a different place, and then we have those descriptors that are describing it. Computers can't even do that, and so wanting you to read those descriptors as you're reading the movies, because that's kind of how we're special, is we keep the conversation going with the customer.
Right, but if you liked Nashville or The Player, and you went to a site like this, it would make sense to recommend maybe a lesser known Altman movie like Secret Honor, because if you like that kind of thing, chances are you're going to like more. But it's kind of like buying a book, or if you like a Bruce Springsteen album, hey, there's 23 other studio albums you can buy.
That's right.
So I mean that makes sense. It also recommends. Oh my God, I can't think of the director's name. Nixon by.
I know who you mean. I'm not going to think of it either.
Yeah, I cannot think of his name. And also, let me see, 13 Days. Good Night and Good Luck. I could see that. JFK, same, and The Insider. Primary Colors, Dick, Bob Roberts. I mean, very very apropos group of movies. Let's go to Milk, the Sean Penn movie, and see what it recommends for that. I'm guessing La Cage aux Folles, but we'll see.
By the way, you're pretty good. If you need a writing, by the way, our writers not only know the movie you're talking about, but they're an expert at all the surrounding movies, or they wouldn't have rated the first movie. And so the reason we have 26 writers and not one is because it takes that many different brains to be that much experts on the movies. And so so when a writer is writing about one movie, they really are an expert of all the surrounding movies, or they wouldn't be there. And we've carefully chosen the 26 writers. We've gone through thousands of resumes to find those that have the special skills we need. So that's our secret, is that, the reason I keep talking about the writers and how special they are, and how it's taken so long. The 6 original writers have worked together for most of the last 10 years. And by the way, if you look at the original Real.com, we've got the movie matching, we've got what we call the anatomy of a movie, we have the basic systems you see today. They just don't connect together, and they weren't very sophisticated. So these are the same people that have been doing the same thing for a long time. And so that's why we think what we're doing is unusual, and then it creates a product that when you play with it for a while, it could be many years before a computer could really create that kind of a product that's conversational. And so as you're comparing us with Netflix, and by the way, if you look at the Netflix comparisons on their recommendations, their matches for the Academy Awards, you'll see that they're very short and very not very substantial compared to ours. But the big way we're different isn't just that, but you'll see we're giving the customers the whys. Mm-hmm. We're keeping the customer involved in the conversation. The computer doesn't know why; they don't even ask the question.
Well, for Milk, the comparatives, the Clerk sleeper pick is And the Band Played On, which I know is a very well-regarded film. That was Matthew Modine. There's some interesting two-word descriptions, though, of some of the others. Romero, which starred Raul Julia, it just says, as tragic. And then we have The Laramie Project, as disturbing. After Stonewall, more expansive.
when you're talking like disturbing and things like that, we're trying to find out why the customer liked the movie. They usually like movies for different reasons. Mm-hmm. And so we're saying more disturbing, where we're trying to give the customer, or as disturbing, we're trying to give the customer a message. If that's why you like the movie, this other movie you'll like.
Mm-hmm. Well, it recommends in this category or matching, Boys Don't Cry, and it describes it as wrenching, and then Bobby as downbeat. It's just, and then you have Before Night Falls as melancholy. It's just interesting, and I have to say, I guess because again it's a comedy, La Cage aux Folles is not in that group. Maybe that's my limited knowledge of gay film. I don't know. There's two more in this group. I think this is kind of interesting. It's a great test. Let's look at The Reader, Kate Blanchett movie, one that I know I will never see. So this will be, oh, wow, what an interesting group. Okay, check this out. Now, I did see this one. It recommends In the Bedroom from 2001 as a good match. But these are the ones that made me laugh. Sophie's Choice, more tragic. Schindler's List, more overpowering. The Tin Drum, more allegorical. The Pianist, more harrowing. Life is Beautiful, more humorous. Let's see, I'm just going to skip down. I don't want to read everything, but some of these are funny. Let's see.
So, we have about, 20 matches per movie?
Yeah, it's about that. Oh, and The Piano Teacher, more perverse. All right, now let's go to the only movie in the Best Picture group that I have actually seen, and that would be Slumdog Millionaire, which is so different from all the rest of these, which is probably why I saw it and not the others.
But by the way, you won't be able to do mash it too much on that, but we've done all the matches.
Well, there's a variety here.
That's right.
It says a creative match for Slumdog Millionaire. This is the Clerk's sleeper pick. Is Monsoon Wedding. Describes it as a more upbeat romantic comedy focusing on another aspect of Indian society and a more middle-class family. I'd probably check that out based on that recommendation, because the things that I liked about Slumdog, I'd like to see more of, and the things that I didn't like, which I won't go into in case you haven't seen it, I wouldn't want to see more of. Well, okay, here's one I wouldn't see. There's one called In This World. It's described as more harrowing. Well, the harrowing stuff in Slumdog is what made me almost walk out of it, so I'm not going to. And City of God, more disturbing.
But by the way, this is exactly why we created the system, is to create a conversation so the customer is part of the conversation, because a computer can't know what a customer is in the mood for, and doesn't even often know their general taste very well. The computer just can't do that. It's just not, the computer isn't there with the person. It's just, and so what you're seeing is why we've done this system is we're bringing you, the customer, back in. We're giving you some hints. You know why you like the movie. You know what you don't like. So we're telling you the whys so you can make better decisions.
Mm-hmm. Well, one of the most interesting recommendations here, and it makes perfect sense, is the movie Quiz Show. That was a Robert Redford movie, but it took place in the 1950s. It was about the quiz show scandals of the time, and very interesting choice.
That's right.
So we've kind of put the system to a test. I think it's held up extremely well.
By the way, could you apply that same test you just did to Netflix? Because you would see they haven't done much with all those movies. In other words, they're not.
I'll tell you what,
if you were to look at Netflix, you would see the matches aren't so good, and they don't say why, and there's not very many of them.
All right. Well, I'm going to do it with just the one I've seen. I've switched over, and we're going to look at Slumdog Millionaire.
Unless Netflix has fixed it next 3 weeks. Last week's, I don't think they have. Meaning, as of what I saw 3 weeks ago, they weren't doing such a good job of this, and they weren't even saying why people should like the movies. In fact, they have no whys on their whole site.
Well, I see that they have 376 results for Slumdog, and you're right. Okay, now the first one makes sense in the way that we talked about Robert Altman. The first one they recommend is Millions, which is also by Danny Boyle, who the director who did Slumdog. So that makes sense. But they don't even explain. You're right. They don't explain even that Danny Boyle did Slumdog. They're not drawing a connection. I would think that even the computer could make that simple a connection.
That connection you could make on their site, I'm sure, in terms of checking out who made the movies, and you could see, I'm sure there's a part of their site where you could find out all the movies one director made and all that kind of stuff. And so that's something I'm sure you could do on Netflix. What they don't know is why. So they can't have you as part of that conversation. They can't give you these words like in the last movies you were talking about. You say, oh yeah, here's one I would like, and here's one I definitely wouldn't because I didn't like that part of the movie. Well, Netflix doesn't even have those answers because they've never asked the customers.
Well, and Stuart, here's what I would have to say. First of all, I want to just clarify. My wife does have a subscription to Netflix, and we do use the service, and it has been entertaining. But what's going on here is for Slumdog, all the similar matches all have the word million or millionaire or millions in them. So
that's what we have. It's a computer. It's not a human. So a computer is making their own conclusions. The computers aren't that smart yet. That's why we have former video store clerks. The human brain can do more than a computer can do still.
Well, here's some of the movies that it recommends if I like Slumdog Millionaire. And other than Millions, which coincidentally is directed also by Danny Boyle, these are the movies that it says I would be interested in. The Millionaires, How to Marry a Millionaire with Marilyn Monroe, which Betty Grable and Lauren Bacall, could not be more different.
No way.
$Million Dollar Baby, which is the Clint Eastwood movie with Hilary Swank, and Morgan Freeman, which I believe either won the Academy Award that year or won for Hilary Swank or the director. I can't recall.
But it's not a match for the movie they're talking about.
Oh, it's not even. It's a quality movie. That's the only thing. There's The Happiest Millionaire from 1967 with Fred McMurray.
No way.
Billions, a lottery story.
No way.
The Millionaire.
But I know a lot of these movies. No way.
Millionaire Dogs, and of course, this is so similar. Brewster's Millions with Richard Pryor. That just makes perfect sense. So, yeah, I mean, you make a very good case for your service here, and I think it's the kind of thing where somebody who loves movies and wants to be introduced to more movies, it's very easy to use Netflix, there's no doubt, and you're going to order a movie. But if you want to be directed to movies that actually connect to the one you liked, you might want to give clerkdogs.com a try here. It's probably going to get you closer to what you want, and even though you'll have to hold off a few months for the full comedy treatment, for these other things, it seems like it's a good way to go. So maybe we'll kind of wrap it up there, and we'll say, let me tell everybody, you can test the clerkdogs.com service just as I did for free. There's no charge. Just go to www.clerkdogs, that's one word, clerk, CLERKDOGS.com. And Stuart, thank you very much for being on the show today. It sounds like an interesting project.
Thank you so much for really checking us out and carefully thinking about who we are and what we're doing. And I so much appreciate your comments and your perspective.
My pleasure. Thanks for calling in today. We appreciate your time.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right. Take care.
Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye. And folks, for more great movie-related interviews, surf over to our main website, www.mrmedia.com. That's where you can listen to my earlier conversations with actors Billy Bob Thornton, Kirk Douglas, and many more. And please think about writing an online review of Mr. Media, casting a vote for Mr. Media, or marking Mr. Media as one of your favorites, whether you listen on Blog Talk Radio, Pointer Online, Digital Journal, Podcast Pickle, Vox, Folio, Mediafly, Podfeed.net, Blueberry, Zencast, or Odeo. You can also get the blog version of Mr. Media on the Amazon Kindle Reader. You can subscribe to that. You can also subscribe to Mr. Media on iTunes, and you'll never miss a show. Just search Mr. Media Interviews from within iTunes and subscribe for free. You can also listen with a piece of string and a tin can in many locations. If you've got an idea for a guest, email me directly at bob@andelman.com. That's ANDELMAN. You can also follow me on Facebook or on Twitter, www.twitter.com/Andelman. Thanks so much for joining us today. I always appreciate when you give up a piece of your day to spend it with us.